Awesome. Well, we got a good amount of people here. Wow, a lot of Iowa. We got a lot of Minnesotans. So yeah, that's awesome to see everybody. Thanks for saying hello. I'm John. I'm one of the managing partners of Celarity. We just do marketing, creative, digital, staffing, recruiting. I got Jay here. He's going to be awesome. I hope I'm not overselling that right now, Jay.
I hope I don't underdeliver then, John. So
Okay.
I'll do my best.
Do you want to give a little bit of a background on you, and then we could talk about why
Sure.
we're here and why we thought this would be such a great topic to hit on?
Well, I just saw that my brother actually hopped on. Hi, Rob. It's funny that I see my brother now on LinkedIn Live, but I don't think I've seen him in person for a number of months just based on schedule. So, hi, brother. Good to see you.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah, so I just joined Medtronic 8 weeks ago. I'm still very much a newborn here. I'm not even a toddler yet, and so it has been a wild couple of months in a very positive way. A lot of learning. Coming into any new organization, it's all about not only understanding the culture and what people are working towards, but just how do you fit into it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what I've been doing is really those like the listening sessions, going around listening to the stakeholders that my talent acquisition team helps to support, and then certainly broader the global talent acquisition team at Medtronic. Is going through our own kind of rejuvenation and re-energization
Yeah.
with the new VP of talent acquisition here named Mark Smith. So he's been in role for about a year now and is bringing a very different mentality to how Medtronic approaches talent acquisition. And
Cool.
it's a really fun thing to be a part of, certainly on the front end of it. And then, I still argue the impact that talent acquisition has on an organization is often it's underappreciated.
Yep.
And I don't think that there's really that knowledge of the level of complexity of what we do. It is not just posting a job and looking at applicants and filling a seat. There's so much more to it than that. But ultimately, if that's where you want to start, cool, we can start there. But when you start to hear about the strategy behind it, that's where it becomes fun.
Yeah. Well, I thought it would be really cool to start just like I know we've been connecting quite a bit over this year. We thought it was just a really interesting, year in general, if that's the
Yeah,
best word to use, right? You
it's
basically,
interesting right now. Yeah.
yeah, we'll just say it's interesting, because I'm sure a lot of people on here have a lot of questions around that.
Yeah.
But your background in particular, being a part of talent acquisition for so long, and finding jobs through your network, you found yourself job searching to start this year. And
Yeah.
I've heard this story similar from other people, just how different it feels this year to be on the job searching side. So we thought it was really interesting to get your perspective, right? Because you were not only on the team leading all this talent acquisition, but then you found yourself job searching and you ended up finding a home in Medtronic. So maybe we start off with that. Like, what was your first initial thought of being on the other side, and like, what was
Oh.
surprising about it?
My first initial thought about being on the other side is that it sucks. It sucks. And I know that there's a lot of articles out there. There's a lot of talk about this being one of the most difficult job markets in history. I can't speak to a lot of the other times because I wasn't necessarily in them. But what I can tell you about this time is that it is very, very difficult right
Yeah.
now. And I think the biggest reason there's difficulty, there's multiple reasons, but the largest is that there are so many excellent professionals right now that, to no fault of their own, are unemployed.
Yep.
And with corporations cutting more jobs, with the continued focus on profit and revenue, especially within public traded organizations, it's been a bit of a cycle that's been going on here. But what's been the output is really talented people looking for work. So when you have those opportunities presenting themselves to you, for instance, we posted a job here a couple of weeks ago for our internal talent acquisition team, and within 3 days had over 400 applicants for it.
Wow.
So that's the type of market that it is right now. It is saturated with amazing people. And so how you stand out from those crowds that's arguably the name of the game now.
Yeah.
It's not a question of whether or not you can or can't do the job, because there's a lot of people that can do the jobs, but how are you the one that they then actually pick up and notice to move forward in that process?
Yeah, and what did you find in the first few months, was working? What was not working? How did you change your job search, running into all that stuff? Maybe
Yeah.
walk us through a little bit of that.
Well, first of all, it's a very humbling experience. I spent a couple of decades on the other side, so to speak, as being a part of or leading talent acquisition teams. And the priority I had always had was trying to create that world-class candidate experience. I know it's an overused term at this point, but candidate experience is something that I want there to continue to be focus on, because right now, and I think, John, you and I were talking about this even a couple of weeks ago, it feels like the bar for candidate experience has gotten so low that I need a shovel literally to go find it because
I
it's now
know.
underground.
Yeah,
And there's multiple reasons for that. Like there's two sides to this story.
yeah,
But from a candidate's perspective, I can see how frustrating it would be, because you see these jobs and you see, like, I meet all of these criteria, every single one. And then either you don't hear anything, or you're given a generic rejection email and you're thinking to yourself, well, I wonder what the person that they decided to go with had that I didn't. Because
yeah.
on paper, I felt like I was a great fit for this. So that humbling piece came first. And then
Well,
the shocking realization was my network had it had dried up a bit. I had not maintained it the way that I needed to. And I was actually thinking about this last night. When you join a new organization, because I'm in the middle of this right now, you start networking heavily where
yeah,
you're at. You want to get to know people. You want to get to know the leaders. You want to get to know the background information. So you spend a lot of time internally getting to know people. Well, what that becomes is a pattern, and then that becomes your habit. And so during my tenure of being with Anderson Corporation prior to Medtronic, and then almost a decade with Ronstad, is I spent a lot of time networking within those organizations, and I failed to continue to keep my network robust outside of those organizations. So when I lost my job and I entered into the job market, I had a lot of people telling me like, "Oh, you'll have no problem. You've got a big network. You're in talent acquisition. No problem."
yeah,
It took me 8 months to find a job. And I learned a very valuable lesson in one of the networking meetings that I had gone to. And there's this saying that's used often. It's all about who you know,
hmm,
right? How often do you hear that? It's all about who you know. That's false. It is not about who you know. It's about who knows you, who knows your situation, who knows what you're going through, who knows what you're looking for. I have a huge network on LinkedIn just because of the profession that I'm in, but that doesn't mean that network is necessarily going to be the right place to go for me to be looking for a new opportunity. So I had to get much more strategic in that look. And it really did shift the paradigm there quite a bit for me when it came back to, it doesn't matter how many people you know. It really does matter who knows you and what
yeah.
you are looking for.
Yeah, and that starts with the way you said, knowing yourself and what you're interested in doing and what you're good
Yeah.
at and all that stuff. I heard a really good book. I haven't dived in yet myself, but somebody last week I had coffee with, they're finding tremendous value out of this book called Never Search Alone. And I'll send the link out after in the comments section. It's all about just getting a coalition together and maybe some other job seekers as well, and then being very purposeful about what you're looking for, who you're trying to network with, and then helping each other. So it's not necessarily like casting a wide net. It's really just finding the people that are going to, work with you together too. Um, yeah.
You
So
know,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna just piggyback on that real quick, John. I think that what's interesting about the way that the job market is working now is that what was applicable, say 10 or 15 years ago, isn't really applicable today. Like the name of the game is totally different. It used to be you find a job and you apply to it, you do an interview or two, and you're offered the position or you're not.
Yeah.
Well, we've now entered into a phase where it seems like a lot of organizations are looking for consensus across multiple levels. They're looking for people to go through double digit interviews, which is, for the record, a gigantic waste of money, by the way, for an organization. And if they looked at it from the cost per interviewer perspective, you'd realize real quick how that money adds up
Yep.
to people being taken out of their revenue generating or their production level positions to talk with folks, and they're doing it over and over and
Yep.
over and over
Six,
again.
7 rounds. Yeah.
Exactly right. It's taking the value away from what they've actually been hired to do. But now, as a candidate, it's almost like you're expected to know the company before you apply, then find people within the company that you can network with, then find the hiring manager and send them a message, then find the talent advisor and send them a message.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, the application has become a 15-step process, and that's not even inside the ATS yet.
Yeah.
So it has become a much more exhausting
Yeah.
process. And I am really hopeful that, as we go forward, certainly from the Medtronic point of view, knowing what we would like to accomplish, making it as simple as possible, making it as transparent as possible, and giving people great information throughout the process, I think is going to start to really move the needle on what those expectations from candidates can look like. And you shouldn't have to do all of this extra work to get in front of the right people. But unfortunately, in this day and age, you do. That is what you have to do.
Yeah. There's a really great comment on here that somebody said similar to what you're saying. Both sides are fatigued right
Yeah.
now. And maybe give us a little insight on the TA side. So job seekers obviously know how frustrating it is going through this process, not hearing back,
Yeah.
applying for multiple roles and all that. What happens on the other side when you apply for a job or people are reaching out to you because you
Yeah.
posted the job? Like maybe give a little insight on that side of things too.
Yeah. I think that one thing to understand is that most of the people that work in talent acquisition, I think I can confidently make this comment, just given the people I've been fortunate enough to work with in my career, and certainly just surround myself with at different conferences or opportunities to meet like-minded professionals. Most of the folks that are in internal talent acquisition, they do actually care. They don't like sending rejection emails. They don't like making those phone calls. It's a part of the job that we have,
Yeah.
but it's not enjoyable. And so, especially when there's those opportunities, you see you're talking to great people, you've got great candidates, but you have a finite number of positions that you can fill. There are often the cases we have more qualified folks in the mix than we do positions available.
Yeah.
And so then it starts to coming down to splitting hairs in certain areas. But again, the reality is that's the way that the market does work right now. So
Yeah.
on the internal side of talent acquisition, we have recs that are posted that, and I know I just mentioned this, they have hundreds and hundreds of people applying to it. And I've heard frequently that people are, they try to do a custom resume for everything. And then they try
Yeah.
to do
That's good stuff.
their custom cover letter. And the use of Chat GPT has certainly elevated and made that more efficient. But my question then would be, is it truly the right way to go about getting what you're looking for?
Yeah.
And just for the record, like, these are my opinions, right? There's going to be a difference of opinion. Everybody's going to have a different idea of what is effective and what's not. But what I think has really come around now is finding the way to show how your skills, ability, and background are going to best serve not only the needs in the here and the now, but what future focus could there also be? What are you going to help drive in the future for the organization versus just the need in the here and the now? So
Yeah,
again, that shift is there.
yeah, that's a great point. And so, like, what happens then if I were to apply for a role, I do a cover letter, I maybe help get some Chat GPT help make it real
Yeah.
customized to Medtronic. Like, what happens? So there's 400 people. Like,
Yeah.
maybe walk us through, like, how is it possible to stand out? Is there a good way to stand out, or what do you recommend? I guess in those situations for people, you got 400, people apply. I just sent in my stuff. Like, yeah, walk us through a little bit. Is there like, and also maybe even hit on like what technology is being used? Is there a magic? I know there's a lot of talk about. Is there like this magic AI thing that's automatically rejecting people based on things? Or like, yeah, just give us a little insight there.
Yeah, so the term AI is being tossed around in everything now. It's like, if you want to make your project sound cool and futuristic, just drop AI into the project charter somewhere, and people would be like,
Yeah,
"Ooh, that's going to be cool."
yeah, right. Web three.
Fact of the matter is that AI has been around for a long time. and it's been used in talent acquisition for a long time. It's just now becoming, much more mainstream. Just AI in general it's become accessible to pretty much anybody. But what's different within talent acquisition is that AI does not make the decisions. And I think that's a really important point that I hope people hear and understand. AI might help stack rank
Sure.
folks that have applied. We are using automation and technology because when you have 400 people, you can't screen 400 people. You just don't have time to do that. So there is a use of technology to help look at people's backgrounds, what they've done, and put them kind of in a stacked rank order based on the weight that we give certain skills or aspects of previous work that help us sort, kind of where to start. But the key part of this, though, is that the recruiters still look at the resumes. They still look at the backgrounds. And so if there is this idea that you put your resume in, AI looks at it, and then it just rejects you, to my awareness, that does not happen. Okay. Now that could very well be happening at some places, in which case I would have a lot of compliance questions, and I'm sure their legal team would too.
Right.
Generally speaking, that is not how this works. AI is used as an efficiency tool within talent acquisition to help us find who we believe are the best fit candidates based on the criteria that we've put in. But that's where the resume is still important, but it's not everything.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that if you have the ability to get that referral, to be talking to the right people at the right time, and believe me, luck and timing are a big part of this, and that is just the reality.
Yeah.
But if you're able to be having those conversations, you're top of mind for folks. And those are the conversations that generally move forward. So resumes are important. Cover letters, me personally, I don't read them just because.
I don't really read them either, to be honest.
Yeah, I appreciate when somebody wants to put them together, but honestly, I don't need to read paragraphs about your background, because the truth is I want to get to know you. I want to have a conversation more than anything else. And so if I'm looking for folks, if we're looking for people, if talent acquisition in general is looking for people, where we like to start is with employee referrals. Where we like to start with is looking at internal mobility. So there's some other factors to that external market that you might not see in the same way. And that's where companies are looking to promote people internally or move them into new opportunities, which will take that position away. Companies are looking to continue to build their workforce around, successful profiles, people that are successful within the organization. When those folks bring a referral, we want to look at those people first, because if you're working here and you understand the environment, the culture, the expectations, the expectation will be, if you're going to bring one of your friends, your family, a colleague, a former colleague, forward, you would think that they could do the job here because they understand it.
So
these factors come into place.
Is a good way of thinking about that then? So you have 400 people apply for a role, but if you get a referral, it's kind of like getting ahead on the rankings almost. Like,
Yep.
to kind of like, all right, we'll definitely do a phone screen to that person. Is that a good way of thinking about it?
I think that the referral is always a great way to go, but I know that's not possible for everybody. And a number of the positions that I had originally applied for when I was looking, I didn't have a referral. I saw the job and I thought, this makes sense for me. This is something I can do. I've either done this in the past, or I believe this is an opportunity that my skill set would lend value to. But what I found after just a couple of months was that, again, I'm a small fish in a very, very big pond.
Yeah.
And for me personally, again, this was just my approach. But after a few months, I stopped applying to jobs and I focused purely on networking conversations and getting to know people. And I had the fortune to speak with a gentleman in the Twin Cities. His name is Ryan McKesson, and he gave me some really good advice early on. And when I would go into these networking conversations or these connection coffees, and I had more caffeine than I think any human being should ever have in about 8 months. what we talked about was, I used to go into the conversations and I would almost word vomit. Like, here's my story. Here's what
Yeah.
happened. Here's what I'm looking for. How can you help me? And, Ryan suggests like, pump the brakes there just a little bit and think of it in a different way. And the acronym that he used, and I've passed this along to others because I think it's valuable, is NATO. So NATO, but what it stands for is not attached to outcome. So what that brought to me was this idea of, instead of going into these conversations looking for an outcome, having an expectation of something,
Yeah.
don't have expectations. Go in, get to know the person that you're meeting with, because half the battle is just getting in front of the people. But
Yeah.
understand, once they've accepted, the opportunity to meet with you, you don't need to keep thanking them for their time. You don't need to keep thanking them for their help. They're committed for a reason. It's because they want to help.
Yeah. They're there
So
to help. Yeah.
knowing that, I went into those conversations to get to know them. I would always ask, always, what can I do to help you? Because this really is supposed to be a two-way street. And for somebody like myself that's very used to helping people, being on the receiving end of that, I used the word humbling before. It's extremely humbling to do that. But I
Yeah.
got some great advice from an old coworker. She said, concentrate on getting your help now so you can get back to doing what you do best, and that's helping others. So I
Yeah.
think that mentality of asking for help and just understanding that every person you talk to is not supposed to be your necessarily means to an end. It's a jumping off point to something that you might not have even considered before.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've seen a lot of comments too, just saying that they also find networking has been a much bigger impact on the job search than the applying. So that's fantastic. And I'm a big advocate of that too. And the more you know yourself and what you're looking for, the more other people are able to help. Because a lot of times someone takes a coffee with you, right? And if you're not able to quickly articulate what you can do and what you can help, or what you're looking for and what kind of companies and size and all that stuff, it's kind of like a blue ocean. It's like, I don't know what I can send to you or who I can connect you with unless you really tell me exactly, what you're looking for. But that's interesting. You bring up the point too. It's like, I think it's kind of forgotten, right? That it's a two-way street, and people want to know that you care about them and what they're about. What, do they have kids? What kind of hobbies are they into? Where do they live? What are they into? And it makes it more fun too, right? Like, you don't just need to go to a coffee meeting and have like just straight business talk for 30 minutes and like, hey, these are my objectives. Did we meet the objectives? It's like, no, we're all humans. We're there because we want to connect with others, right?
I mean, John, you and I think, are probably a pretty good example of that. I met you after I had lost my job, and we were getting together to network, and here we are today. I made so many great relationships through this process that I have a support system now that I did not have prior to that job loss. Now, granted, I wish the circumstances in which that network was built would have been slightly different,
Yeah.
but it's built nonetheless. And now going forward, I want to make sure that I'm nurturing, I'm maintaining that, I'm continuing to give back to those that gave to me.
Yeah.
And going through the process, there's I know there's a lot of negativity just in the world in general right now.
Yeah.
I've had the belief for a long time, and I think it was really emphasized with the folks that I had the opportunity to meet with and those that were willing to help me. And that is, human beings are inherently wired to want to help one another.
Hmm.
When you ask somebody for help, not only is it flattering to them, there's a connection that's made with that immediately, because
Yeah.
there's a feeling of ownership. There's a feeling of connection in that way. So I think the ability to ask for help and put yourself into that vulnerable place makes a huge difference. And it's not easy to do, but it is very necessary to do.
And a good networking tip too is everybody likes to talk about themselves is what they know the most about. So the more you ask them questions about that, the more they're going to actually end up remembering you too. And I
Absolutely
remember
right.
from our first meeting, I remember it was a trip to Australia that you were doing.
Yeah.
So I
Yep.
even remember that kind of little things about people that, we grab coffee with, and it makes it fun. And we bond over those travels, and more help and more ways to connect. Right.
Absolutely. And I had again, I was called out literally in one of these networking conversations that I had, and it was the most professional, yet well redirected way of thinking I think I've experienced. And I was meeting with a gentleman, and I kind of did my thing right before I had talked to Ryan. So I went in and I told him my story, and this is what's going on, and this is what I'm looking for. And at the end of the conversation, or near the end of the conversation, he said to me, "You're expecting me now to ask how I can help you, right?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it's gone. That's pretty standard for what I've been experiencing." And he said, "How can you ask me to help you or know what I can do for you when you know nothing about me?" And that stopped me dead in my tracks. I was like, that is a very good point, because I don't know much, if anything, about you, other than I was referred to you by somebody else who said that you would be good for me to meet with.
Yeah.
But it was that pause. It was that opportunity to say, this really is a two-way street. And how can I, as a job seeker, be asking somebody for help if I don't even know what they're capable of helping me with, because I don't know them?
Right.
That's where I think that not attached to outcome really comes into play, because it's more about getting to know the person, and then organically it starts to move into a different place. I'm not saying it happens every single time
Yeah.
at all, but when it does, as you're searching for a job, and I had to keep reminding myself of this, it just takes one person to say yes. Just one person saying yes changes everything.
Yeah.
And that is what you're striving towards, that one yes.
Yeah. I think this has been a really good talk. We try to keep these pretty short. There's a couple comments I want to circle back to, and then I
Sure.
think we can wrap things up too. And any parting wisdom you want to share. Somebody mentioned, so they spend a lot of time tailoring their resume to specific job descriptions, and they noticed when they started doing that, they started hearing back less, like radio silence. Within, they said it was around May-ish of this
Yeah.
year. Is there any insight or anything you could share about, like, is it worth the time tailoring resumes specifically to keywords on postings, or is there anything you can kind of shed light on that?
You know, I think I want to be careful how I answer this. I do think it matters what level of position you're looking for. I do think those that are earlier in their career, maybe not quite to that midpoint yet, the resume is going to be more helpful. And the reason for that is because the experience is somewhat limited at that point. So
Yeah.
that's really what people are looking at, because they don't know you yet. As you get further along in your career, the resume becomes less and less relevant. It's not about what's on paper anymore. It's about, what have you done? Who do again, who do you know and who knows you?
Yeah.
And what are your skills, or what sort of value are you going to bring to an organization? The resume doesn't tell that story. The person tells that story.
Yeah.
So I do think there's value in modifying your resume to a type of skill set or a type of role that you're looking for. But I would tell you, if that's where you're spending your time, I'd probably adjust that, because I don't think it's going to actually pay off in the way that you want it to.
Okay.
Once you get through that first hurdle, if you can get through that first hurdle, and that is just getting a conversation with a talent advisor, with a recruiter within an organization, after that point, the resume becomes much, much less viable in the conversation, because you've shown on paper and through conversation you can do the job.
Yeah.
Now it's a question of saying, how is your past experience going to help our future as an organization? So
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered that question in the way that they're looking for. The answer is a yes and a no, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't spend a lot of time doing it. No.
I think you did a really good job at answering it. And I think, kind of circling all the way back to the beginning of the conversation about, this person not getting responses. Like you said, we have to dig right now to find just the bar where things are set on,
Yep.
talent or candidate experience right now. And, I challenge everybody who's, in TA on this call, like, let's just try to remember long-term focus, right? I know we're all stressed and fatigued with the amount of applicants that are coming through. There's a human on every side of that, right? Even if they might be using the assistance of a bot, there's still humans on the other side of that. And
Sure.
how they get treated in this job search will stick with them for a long time. And things, as we know in this market, change quickly.
It's given me a greater appreciation, certainly, for not only what candidates are going through today, but again, just how organizations are making it more difficult for people to get hired. Too many steps in the interview process,
Yes.
too much work to get consensus of way too many people
Yes.
before you make a hire. Like there are things that can be done fundamentally within organizations to help this.
And that
Where
might
that's
be,
going to
yeah, that might be on the TA side, right? Trying to make sure everyone's
absolutely,
on
it's
the
on the
same
TA
page
side.
before, yeah, and trying
Yep.
to make it faster, more streamlined. And
If
yeah,
you're looking at things from a growth mindset, continuous improvement, that's everything, right? So it might have been effective a couple of years ago. It's not effective today.
yeah,
That's what's the saying? What got us here what got us here today won't get us there tomorrow.
yeah,
It's the same sort of thing. We need to constantly be evaluating what we're doing and how we're doing it. And the moment we start getting hung up on, well, that's how we've done it for, say, the past year or two, danger, Will
yeah,
Robinson. That is not what we want to hear. We want to hear, you know what? We should be adjusting because the market is adjusting. Candidate
yeah,
expectations are adjusting. We need to adjust right along with them. The companies that do that will rise above very quickly from
yep.
the others. And those that choose to not do it, you'll probably get left behind.
Yep. And I think, high up leadership needs to take a lot bigger investment in this experience too, because all these candidates and applicants are also customers for a lot of businesses too. You got to keep the long
Yeah.
focus on everything. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're at a good amount of time here. I feel like this has been a great talk. Is there anything you kind of want to leave people with, or any tips, tools, books, words of wisdom, anything you kind of want to leave us with?
All I can say to anybody that's looking for a job right now is I know it sucks. It is very, very difficult right now. And every day is a challenge for you. I found myself often in that death scroll on LinkedIn, looking at people that had either been laid off or gotten a new job. And every time I saw somebody that got a new job, I'm thinking, why isn't that me making that? I feel like I'm a good professional. I feel like I should be, employed by now. It's very frustrating. But what I can tell you is, advice that I got again very early on. It's not that you won't work again. You will. So this is not a question of if, it's just when. And the connections you can make with people, the process that you're going through, and it's never, ever, ever as fast as people want it to be. But what
Yeah.
I can assure you of is if you are doing the networking, if you are talking to people, even without realizing it, you are building a brand for yourself and you're building a network that you didn't have before. And that will all be beneficial in the future. So try to keep your head up. I know that's difficult to do, but there are people out there that want to help. And if you haven't plugged into networking groups, in your community or in your expertise space, please start doing that.
Yeah.
Truth is, if you want to talk to people and you reach out to them on LinkedIn, a lot of people will say yes to conversations. Don't think that people are just ignored with direct messages on LinkedIn. Some people do choose to ignore them. Again, I can't speak for everybody. I do my best to try to respond to just about everybody that I possibly can. And that's a lot to keep up with, but there are people out there that want to help. You just got to find them.
Yep. And I just to echo that, reaching out, the worst thing you're going to hear back is silence.
And
And
arguably that's the most frustrating thing you're
yeah,
going to hear back is silence. Having an answer is better than no answer. And that again is something internally within TA teams we strive towards. And that's making sure we got to keep the communication open. We've got to tell people what's going on. Otherwise, we're just as bad as everybody else.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great note to leave on. I know we have a slide that we could throw up if you want to connect with me or Jay. So this is kind of, I feel like I'm a techie person, but I didn't know you could do this on LinkedIn. On the search bar on your mobile app, you can click on it and then there's a QR little icon. So you can actually scan our little QR codes here and take you right to our pages to connect with me and Jay.
John, I'm
So
glad you found this out. No, this is going to be
yeah,
really beneficial.
yeah, I'm on the cutting edge. QR codes, Jay. We're really
Here we go. Yeah.
awesome. Well, thanks again for your time, Jay. I always enjoy talking to you, and
You too,
based
John.
on the comments here, everyone loved your feedback and insight and vulnerability. So really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
For sure. I'm happy to chat with anybody who would be interested. Bear with me. Like I said, I'm still in week 8 with a new organization, but I will absolutely do my best to get back to anybody that sends a message.
And you said week 2 out of traveling out of 5. So
yep, 3 more weeks of getting out there, but I truly it's a lot, but I love it. I love the opportunity to get to see the different sites we have, meet with the different professionals that we have within the organization. And again, it gives me a great level of appreciation for not only what Medtronic does, but how we do it. So I'm all in. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jay. Really appreciate your time. And yeah, feel
Absolutely.
free to connect with us afterwards, and we'll be following up with a lot of these comments too. So good rest of your day, everyone. Enjoy the fall.
Thanks, everyone.